Hello and welcome to my first video. For those of you that are programmers, I really want to apologize in case you go through my code, but in my defense, this is my very first project, and when I started like 1 month ago for the competition, I didn't know anything about LangChain. So this was an opportunity for me to learn the library. Unlike the demonstration video, my plan here is not to go through the front-end app, which actually was made with Streamlit. This was my first encounter, and I made my life more difficult by actually trying to integrate it. But in the end, I was happy with the result. So my plan is to go mostly through the specific workflows that I use. I want to make a small comment that I created this small workflows that each of them is doing like a specific task, and then I try to use them as a tools to a much bigger workflow. So I don't think like LangChain was really prepared for that. I mean, I didn't get an error, but I was getting some notes that a LangChain was expected, but a tool was founded, or the other way around. So, okay, so I will go through my first workflow. In the first workflow, I have like 3 agents. One of the agent called the receptionist is provided with a list of papers. Then the receptionist gives that one by one to the retriever. The retriever job is a little bit more complicated. First, he takes the query, he sends it to archive and see what it can get back, and then it decides based on what he got back to uh, download the paper or not. So I put a third agent in the mix, and I will explain the reason. And this agent takes the archives answer, which is like a big metadata mess, and makes sense out of it to feed it back to the retriever. The reason that I'm doing that is to save as much as prompting space as possible, because if the retriever had to go all this metadata as well, then the whole prompts will become huge. For the two agents, the receptionist and the I call cleaner, I use Llama through the NVIDIA endpoint, and for the retriever, I use OpenAI and the GPT 3.5. In all actuality, I think that Llama works better for that purpose as well, but in NVIDIA's chat method, the bind tools command has not yet been uh, implemented. So the rest of my workflows are much more straightforward and usually have one or two agents. Before I proceed, I want to say that like from archive, normally you download the PDF. So I needed to find a way to make this PDF to a markdown, and I use different kind of converters. One is called MuPDF, which was actually quite good, but it was not very good with a mathematical notation. For that, I discovered another approach. It was like an app called NuGat by Meta, which was like really, really good with one shortcoming. The shortcoming is that the citation format was really mixed up. To fix that problem, I created a second as- to fix this problem, I created a second workflow that I called it OCR Enhancer. What happens is actually that I use two different PDF converters. I get two files, and then based on some criteria, I keep the best of the both worlds. In this case, I use the file that I get from NuGat, which has a mixed up citation format, and with an auxiliary file that I get from new PDF, I get a perfect, let's say, OCR with has the nice mathematical notation, but at the same time it keeps the right citation format. Okay, so the third idea was that I wanted to create like a keyword and summary out of the I wanted to create a keyword and summary out of one text. But for that, especially in mathematical papers, I thought that uh, having the proofs there, it's more confusing than helpful. So I decided to make like a workflow that is called proof remover. This actually was, with this I had the worst result. Um, so I am inviting everyone who wants to try. And actually I had bad results even with more strong LLMs. I mean, GPT-4o and Opus kind of did the job, but that was like too expensive for what I got back. When the proofs are removed, or even without, then it's like quite straightforward to create a nice summary. So the idea that the way I did it is that like I split the manuscript in pages or like big chunks of text, uh, but like not big that they will not fit in the LLM's context. And then I feed page by page. I create a summary, and in the second and with every new page, the summary is updated. So here one can try much more complicated approaches and better ideas. You can go through the summary through the pages twice. You can have like a second network to check the first network's work. Um, I think at this point, like one can try many things, and some of them be like will be considered academic research at this point. So my final workflow is what I call the translation workflow, and okay, so the idea was like quite simple. Sometimes, or like very often, when I translate mathematical manuscript using Google Translate or something similar, I get the terminology really mixed up, and it's not a terminology that is in sync with the terminology that we use in our discipline. So the whole idea was to make like a context-based translation. So the translation agent takes two files. One file is the file to be translated, and the second one is like some summary or some keywords about the first file. So this will help the the translator to make the best out of it. The auxiliary or like the summary file, you can create it with a previous workflow in any language, like it can be like directly in English or it can be in the original language. It doesn't really matter, but since you have these keywords and the summary, then you can feed it as an auxiliary text and get the right translation. So to say a little bit more, my original plan with this project was not to make like a fancy translator or even like a fancy translator with retrieving, but my original plan was to make like an automated procedure that creates a whole scientific survey out of a paper. So the circle that this goes is that you feed it a paper, then it OCRs the paper, it makes a summary, it finds the strongest citations, then it uses the strongest citations to go back to the internet or to archive, retrieve the best possible papers, and like add them to your pile, and then go through all of them one by one and make the best possible summary. So that was my initial plan, and I was really happy about it. But then when I start doing real things, I realize the reality of the current state of LLMs, which is not as advertised. So it is very difficult uh, to to get what you want out of an LLM. So like, especially if you want to combine a collection of steps, then there is like many ways that you can fail.